No, 83% were identified as civilians by the IDF, according to Israeli papers. Everyone check that out.
Yeah, everyone can Google it.
You have no argument because the truth is on my side, and I know that's so difficult. So stop embarrassing yourself.
All right, stop for a second and pay attention, because this moment from Piers Morgan Uncensored is easily one of the most dramatic exchanges we've seen on the show in quite a while. Ana Kasparian joins the panel, and almost immediately she's confronted by two guests who are prepared to push back against her views. Two people against one. At first, you might assume she'd have a hard time handling that situation. But that's not what happens. Not even close. From the start, she doesn't act like someone under pressure. Instead, she appears completely in control. What makes the conversation especially fascinating is the source of the information she relies on. The other panelists struggle to challenge it. As soon as she introduces that evidence, you can practically feel the atmosphere of the discussion shift. Stay with it, because the conversation becomes even more compelling as it continues.
Do you believe she's anti-Semitic?
No, I do not. I do not believe that Anna is anti-Semitic. Okay. I think that she can sometimes be easily manipulated and push the same Hamas-run Ministry of Health numbers.
And out of interest, Jay. And Jay, before Anna, I'll come to Anna. I'll let you respond.
Let's talk about data. No. I get to respond to that. Let's talk about data from the IDF. The IDF's internal data. I don't read American media on what's happening in the Middle East. I actually like to read Israeli media because they're super honest, and I really appreciate their honesty. So Israeli papers got a hold of the IDF's internal data in regard to civilian casualties in Gaza. And their own data indicates 83% of people slaughtered in Gaza, 83% are civilians. Israel, the IDF, just shot and killed. Stop, don't interrupt me. IDF just shot and killed an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old in Gaza, claiming that they had crossed the yellow line when no such thing happened. And they tried to make it seem as though an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old are literal militants deserving of the type of slaughter they were met with. Okay, listen, I am not going to sit here and just stomach the ridiculous propaganda and lies that keeps getting regurgitated over and over and over again. You guys have to find better talking points. You really do, because these have been debunked over and over again on this show, and they will continue to be debunked on this show, on my show. Americans aren't stupid. They see what's happening. The evidence is abundantly clear. What's amazing to me is the dehumanization of every human life that isn't Israeli or isn't in favor of what that disgusting genocidal government is up to.
Okay, look, we've had some tech issues, Jake, with your signal, so we're trying to fix that. Let me go to Hen Mazzy.
Divine intervention must be.
Well, Hen Mazzy, you've been listening to this. What is your response to what Anna just said?
Yeah, it's rich to speak about dehumanization when from a person that said that all Israelis should be ashamed of themselves, that we are demons, that the Jewish lobby controls the U.S., that Israel is a Nazi state.
The Jewish lobby does control the U.S.
Okay, all right. So
where's the lie?
Prove my point, thanks. The problem is that you are not able to look in the mirror and see who you are and what you're doing to the Jewish community.
Oh, I look in the mirror
once the Jewish community is calling you out for the way you are harming us, instead of listening and trying to change your ways, you're doubling down. And as long as you're going to do that, yes, we are going to continue calling you what you are and saying that what you're doing is really harming our community. So it's what's disgusting here, Anna, is that you are unable to hear to a minority community telling you that your words have contributed to an atmosphere that gets our people killed outside of our synagogues because of your words, because of statements that you said that others like you have said.
They weren't included on the anti-Semite list, by the way. The guy who killed 2 Israeli embassy workers, this year, okay, the actual anti-Semite who murdered people didn't make it on the list. Fascinating.
So, Hen, do you think that Anna is anti-Semitic?
I think that her words are deeply anti-Semitic. I think she has contributed to an atmosphere that gets our people killed, and I think it's totally legitimate to call this out. And if a minority community is telling you this, you should listen to us. And yes, maybe this person that...
But hang on. So let me just stop you there, because I've been branded anti-Semitic, okay, by a lot of people on social media.
And I've defended you, Piers.
Right, because I deeply resent it. Right. Because as everybody remembers, who watches this show, for many, many, many long months after the October the 7th attacks, I vigorously and loudly defended Israel's right to defend itself. This year, from the start of this year onwards, I began to be more and more critical of the Israeli government. Not of the Israeli people, not of Israel, wasn't denying its existence, I wasn't attacking Jewish people or Israeli people, specifically the government, Benjamin Netanyahu, and also specifically the right-wing headbangers in that government like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. And for my troubles, despite painstakingly making it clear who was the object of my criticism, I was regularly branded anti-Semitic. So I do believe it's something that's been thrown around way too much. It's done in a deliberate, concerted effort to shut people up from criticizing anything that Israel's doing. So yes, there is genuine anti-Semitism, no question. I think it's been rising in the last 2-3 years, which is appalling. But throwing it around to silence people, I'm not accusing you, Hen, I'm just saying this is what I've been on the receiving end, is it's just been used as a stick to censor people and to shut them up. And I think that's abhorrent.
Wait a minute, did you catch what just happened? Because this part deserves a closer look. Jake Donnelly's main argument is that Ana is relying on questionable statistics. That's really the center of his criticism. He's attempting to portray her as someone who repeats information she finds online without properly checking it first. It's a familiar strategy. You've likely seen it used in countless political arguments. Challenge the source, undermine the credibility of the speaker, and move forward. But Ana responds in a way that catches everyone off guard. Rather than becoming defensive or debating which news organizations deserve trust, she redirects the entire discussion. She explains that her information isn't coming from American media reports at all. Instead, she points directly to Israeli sources. Think about how significant that is. She's citing information from sources connected to the very side being discussed. Then she references that specific figure, 83%. She doesn't simply throw it out there. She carefully explains where it originated, who released it, and points out that viewers can check it themselves immediately. That's the kind of response that shows real knowledge rather than simple confidence. Jake didn't seem to have a strong reply. In fact, he appeared to have none, and it was pretty obvious.
Feel it.
And I agree with that. I'm not saying that, yes, some people use anti-Semitism too widely and in a wide brush that they shouldn't have to do it. And I think it's true for every minority community. As a gay person, I see how people use the term homophobic quite casually to say anyone that has any criticism of LGBTQ people is homophobic. I understand that it's not like that. And it's the same with anti-Semitism. But that doesn't take away from the severity of people making statements that end up, as Ana mentioned, the same statements that we hear from them are the ones that are being used to shoot Jews outside of our Holocaust Museum in DC.
And what about Miss Rachel? Do you think she's anti-Semitic?
I don't think she's anti-Semitic, but I think she's really misguided. And I think the fact that when she hosted Moatez Aziza that celebrated Hamas on her platform, and then when Jews called her out, she said, trying to defend starving children is not anti-Semitism. It played directly into a medieval blood libel that says that Jews are trying to kill children, and we use anti-Semitism to stop her from trying to stop us. We're not silencing her. We're calling her out. We're calling her in, rather. And if she just listened to us and have this conversation, if Ana just listened to us and have a conversation instead of screaming every time she hears Jewish person criticize her, I'm sure that next year she wouldn't be on the list.
Well, let me read Miss Rachel's response on Instagram to this nomination. She said, "I'm so thankful to Jewish organizations, rabbis, friends, colleagues, and family for standing by me. I'm against anti-Semitism and all forms of hate and racism. I'm incredibly proud of my work to help Palestinian children. With 20,000 Palestinian children killed, most child amputees in modern history, homes, schools, hospitals bombed, 17,000 orphans, everyone should be speaking out." She also went on CNN's Amanpour show and told Christian Amanpour some more of her thoughts about this. This was 2 months ago. Let's take a look.
What was it that made you step out and support these children in Gaza?
How could I not, seeing what was happening on our screens, hearing from Save the Children who had firsthand accounts, knowing that so many children were losing their lives. It's up to over 18,000 children. So as an early childhood educator, I know what children need. They need food. It's being blocked. They need water. It's being blocked. They need to be in school. Their schools have been bombed. They need medical care. I know what children need to thrive, and I know what holds them back. And it was very clear to me, along with so many others in our country and around the world, that it's so critical to speak up.
And she also addressed the criticism she'd faced. This was before this new nomination came out.
Were you ever worried? Because even before you spoke up, it was a hornet's nest of of controversy, the idea of speaking up for, let's face it, Palestinian children after October 7th.
I'm not an expert in that area, but I knew that I'm an expert in child development. I have 2 masters in education. I've worked with children my whole life for 20 years. Seeing the images of the children, there was no question that it was the right thing to say something.
Okay, so Jake, when you hear what she says there and you read her statement, she's very keen to stress she's not anti-Semitic. She doesn't hate Jewish people. So why would she be targeted in this way?
Well, we've already discussed it. When you are a children entertainer and you bring somebody on who glorifies a day in which 38 children were murdered, well, we're going to have some questions as to.
But I've had people. But my response to that is, I've had many guests on here on the pro-Palestinian side, not who've glorified October the 7th, but certainly who've refused to condemn it. So does that make me anti-Semitic for giving them a platform?
No, you're a journalist, you're not a children's entertainer, although sometimes it can get pretty childish on this show. But that's not the case here. And if we're talking about anti-Semitism and what actually constitutes anti-Semitism, we already have something on this show where Ana says that 83%, that's just those who were identified. That is a misleading statistic, and either Ana,
no, it's not.
How to read
83% of those slaughtered in Gaza were identified as civilians by the
were
IDF.
Identified. So you're not reading the statistic correctly. So
no. 83% were identified as civilians by the IDF, according to Israeli papers. Everyone check that out.
Yeah, everyone can Google it.
You have no argument because the truth is on my side, and I know that's so difficult. So stop embarrassing yourself.
Well, Ana, let me ask you though. Ana, let me ask Ana this. No, hang on. Let me ask Ana this question. Was it unwise of Miss Rachel to be so outspoken about this? Not because she's not entitled to, or it's not an incredibly important issue, but the fact she is a children's entertainer with a huge audience. Was it unwise of her to get overtly political like this?
The days of Zionists bullying Americans into silence is over. Put that in your pipe.
So at this stage, the discussion starts moving in a completely new direction. Honestly, this section is every bit as engaging as what came before it. Piers decides to try another angle. He asks Ana whether Miss Rachel, a children's entertainer followed by millions of people, made a mistake by speaking out on political issues. On the surface, it's a reasonable question. Should someone whose audience is primarily children be commenting on topics that are serious and highly controversial? But pay attention to Ana's response. She doesn't get caught up in the wording of the question. Instead, she gives a straightforward answer. She says she believes it's the right thing to do, simple as that. Then she explains why she feels that way. Afterward, Piers pushes the conversation further by raising the issue of double standards. He asks whether she would defend a children's entertainer on the opposite side as well. It's a clever question because it's designed to reveal any inconsistency in her position. But Ana answers directly. She says that if someone is highlighting the humanity of children, regardless of which side they're on, she has no problem with it. She also points out that she has expressed that same view on Piers' program before. What's notable is that Piers doesn't really challenge that response. He largely moves the discussion elsewhere. In debates, when a host changes topics instead of pressing harder on an answer, that can sometimes reveal more than an argument itself.
That's a different question, though.
I'd like to read a quote.
Oh, that was great.
I'd like to read a quote.
Yeah, the biggest bully on the internet is talking about bullying. Give me a break.
Miss Rachel is an American, God bless her. And as an American, she is afforded the freedom to speak out against injustice as she sees it. So do I think it's wise?
No.
Obviously, I think it's wise. It's what I do for a living.
No one's doubting her right.
I think it's wise.
No one's doubting her right to say it.
Yes.
But it's whether it's...
Answered your question, I think it's wise. Because they're going to call everyone an anti-Semite.
What would you say
as long as you're not bowing down to the government of Israel, they're going to call you an anti-Semite.
Right.
They don't even care about the value of Jewish lives here in the United States.
Okay, but Ana,
if those Jewish individuals are critical of Israel,
Ana,
it's all about Israel. This is about an ideology, not about an identity, a heritage, a religion, or an ethnicity.
Okay, but if
Make sure you realize that. Because
but if it was
weaponizing anti-Semitism for Israel's purposes is so disgusting.
But if it was a children's entertainer who was pro-Israeli,
Ana would have.
What would you say? And be honest about this.
If she is showing the humanity of Israeli children, why would I have a problem with that?
Oh, come on.
Really?
And Piers, you've had me on this show multiple times. Yeah, I 100%.
But if you deem she only cared about Israeli kids
multiple times,
right? But if you
Do you
deem
know
she
what year
cared,
it is? Pierce, do you know what year it is? Okay, it's not October 7th, 2023. Since then, over 2.5 years later, tens of thousands of children have been slaughtered on the Palestinian side.
Yeah, but that's not my
So
question.
when they bring up the what
That's
about
not my question.
what about everyone condemns what happened to Israeli civilians
Yeah, but
on
that's not my
October
question.
7th. I have done that
Anna,
on this show.
Anna, you're answering a
I
different...
have done that on this show.
Yeah, I'm not
the
questioning.
Thing is, the two
I'm not
individuals
questioning
on
that.
this panel right now do not care about Palestinian lives.
Well, I don't believe that's true.
That's false.
I don't believe that's
on
true.
So-called anti-Semitism.
I don't believe that's true, but my question
they don't
was...
care.
My question,
they don't care.
All right,
let me read you a quote
Let
then.
me talk,
Let me read you
Anna.
a quote.
Let me talk.
This is from
Let me talk.
Tali Gottlieb. Tali Gottlieb says, "We have no hostages left. We no longer have to be precise," as if the IDF was ever precise in Gaza. "We can attack without mercy. Merciless. Merciless." What do the two individuals on this panel have to say about that?
Well, I
disgusting
want you to...
genocidal rhetoric.
Okay, but I just want you to answer my question first, which is actually specifically about whether a children's entertainer with a massive reach, if they were promoting the pro-Israeli position on this war and not really mentioning the
genocide?
Palestinian side.
No, I would not think that's a good idea.
So you would not like that to happen?
If they're promoting genocide, I would not.
That's not what
like
he asked.
that.
No, if they were being supportive of Israel, but they weren't mentioning the Palestinian plight much, what would you say about that? Would you think it's appropriate
I
for
would say that
children's
sounds
entertainment?
a lot like American media.
No, but my point would be that I think
I
think you would be very critical if a children's entertainer was overtly pro-Israeli. That's the point. So is there a double standard here? On both sides, by the way. I've seen it on both sides. But is there a double standard in how you apply it to this kind of story where if it was the other way round, would you be so vehement in your defense of it? I suspect not.
Now let's look at what actually took place during this debate. Ana entered the conversation facing an obvious disadvantage. Two guests were openly criticizing her position while Piers was leading the questioning. In many debates, someone in that situation would consider it a success just to stay composed and avoid being overwhelmed. But that's not what happened here. Ana did more than defend her views. She repeatedly pushed the conversation forward. Whenever someone challenged her point, she answered with details that were more precise, more informative, and more direct than the arguments being presented against her. Throughout the exchange, she never appeared rattled or uncertain. This clip comes from Piers' Uncensored, a program where people with very different opinions meet to debate difficult issues. One thing that makes discussions like this valuable is that you get to watch people think and respond in real time under pressure, without the opportunity to edit their comments afterward. What this debate demonstrates is that when someone genuinely understands a subject deeply and is willing to express their views without holding back, it stands out immediately. Whether or not you agree with Ana's position, it's worth watching the debate again. Pay attention to the way she manages the conversation, even when multiple people are speaking over her. That skill alone is worth noticing regardless of your opinion on the topic. And if you've stayed until the end of this video, then you already know this was a memorable debate. Send it to someone else who should watch it too.